In The Prophet, in the chapter titled On Giving, Khalil Gibran writes, "There are those who give little of the much which they have, and they give it for recognition, and their hidden desire makes their gifts unwholesome. And there are those who have little and give it all. These are the believers in life and the bounty of life, and their coffer is never empty. There are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. And there are those who give with pain, and that pain is their baptism. And there are those who give and know not pain in giving, nor do they seek joy, nor give with mindfulness of virtue. They give as in yonder valley the myrtle breathes its fragrance into space. Through the hands of such as these, God speaks, and from behind their eyes, he smiles upon the earth." Gibran paints a picture of giving at its purest. We should give and know not pain in giving, nor seek joy, nor give with mindfulness of virtue. Instead, we should give as the myrtle breathes its fragrance into space, unthinking, simply just giving. And it is in that kind of giving, he says, that God smiles upon the earth. The Buddha reaches for something similar. He says, true charity occurs only when there are no notions of giving, giver, or gift. There is real beauty in that ideal, pure altruism, effortless and unself-conscious. It's something worth aspiring to, but I believe we can find tremendous value in giving that is far less pure. Take pain. Gibran asks us to give and not know pain. Mother Teresa asked the opposite. She said, give until it hurts. She believed that true love sometimes requires us to give up our own comfort for the sake of others, and she certainly lived that belief. Think of the ordinary, generous things we do that cost us something real. Parenting, for instance. I hope that I have given my children things, some of which were named in that book that Garrett read earlier. There is much pain woven into that giving. The exhaustion of the early sleepless years, the small daily sacrifices of time and comfort, and that ache that you feel watching your child struggle. Does God not smile on that kind of generosity? Surely he does. What about joy? Gibran allows for it earlier in the poem. There are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. Before he goes on to say, we should search for something higher. Giving is so natural, it asks for no reward at all, not even that feeling. But I wonder, how much does joy really diminish a gift? Maya Angelou said, we need joy as we need air. Let's allow ourselves some joy. And what of recognition? Gibran is wary of gifts given for recognition, and rightly so. There can be something hollow in giving that's really just asking to be seen. But does being seen always cheapen a gift? Sometimes there's real power in being acknowledged as part of a community that comes together to make something happen. That recognition can be exactly what brings us closer together. We live in a time when giving is often shaped by talk of tax deductions or organizations donating to communities in hope of currying favor. Against that backdrop, we rightly long for something that's pure, giving as natural as the myrtle's fragrance, or as the Buddha says, giving with no notion of giver, giving, or gift. That is worth reaching for. But when we fall short of it, as we often will, let's still value the giving that comes with pain or with joy, or even with the wish to be seen. Every one of those gifts still counts. As Maya Angelou says, when we give cheerfully, and accept gratefully, everyone is blessed.
So, what can we make of the tension between pure altruism and the brute fact of reciprocity? The brute fact that the world is transactional. On the scales of benefit and bother, did that sweater you got outweigh the thank you card you had to send? Or was that exchange one more childhood grievance that metastasized into a refusal of Christmas itself? It's okay, Unitarians here. Or how about the dinner invitation from the guy you met at a conference who wants to be friends? What weighs more, the guilt at saying no, or the prospect of enduring the dinner, the obligatory reciprocal dinner, and encouraging his attention? Sometimes it feels harder to accept generosity than to be generous. We don't want to board that train of reciprocal obligation. You may not have the fare, you may not know the destination, we may not like the dining car menu. But because we can't really stay home, we must make the best of our journey into reciprocity. French ethnologist Marcel Mauss looked at gift giving in Polynesian, Melanesian, and indigenous Northwest American societies. Mauss recognized that gift giving was a form of exchange that bound the participants to certain obligations. The gifts involved not just objects, but countless entertainments, ritual, military assistance, dances, feasts. And these exchanges led to long-lasting communal ties. He concluded that what looked like voluntary, spontaneous, and disinterested presentations were in fact obligatory and interested exchanges based on economic self-interest. Mauss identified 3 obligations in these societies: to give, to receive, and to reciprocate. Mauss linked the fulfillment of these obligations to notions of honor and status hierarchy. For example, Chinook's chief failure to give the potlatch ceremony put his preeminent role at stake. Refusing to accept a gift puts honor at stake because it exposes a fear of having to repay. Failing to reciprocate subordinates the recipient as indebted and subservient. On the other hand, reciprocation with a higher value gift begins a struggle for status. Now, Mauss's findings about status hierarchy may not resonate with the UU congregation. We may be hoping that other values describe and prescribe our giving. But what may resonate for us is Mauss's observation that the obligations of generosity ensure the continuous exchanges, and those build solidarity and community. Another French philosopher I haven't read, Jacques Derrida, critiqued Mauss. Derrida argued that the cycle of debt, economic calculations, circle of exchange makes a true gift impossible. Contradiction, because, and Derrida simply announces this, a true gift must remain outside of any economy, circulation, or even an expression of gratitude. In fact, for Derrida, the true gift must not even be recognized as a gift by the recipient or even the giver. That recognition symbolically pays the giver back, which annuls the gift by reducing it to a mere exchange. Now, Diane reminded us that the Buddha said true charity occurs only when there are no notions of giving, giver, or gift. So is true giving impossible or just impossibly aspirational? In her piece, Keeping the Score, Jilly Klieger takes on the problem of reciprocity. Klieger explains that a strict distinction between purely altruistic giving and transactional contracts is a false dichotomy. The dichotomy doesn't capture the myriad of exchange relationships that we call giving. It doesn't help us understand or participate in these relationships if we believe that the gift and the contract are of different species, the one motivated by goodness, the other by utility, the first rooted in moral law, the other in material interest. This dichotomy, she says, is an artifact of modern contract law, something that arose in commercial society with its interdependence on long supply chains and anonymous participants. So Klieger says, the contract steps in where fellow feeling falls short. We needn't worry whether our trade partner is trustworthy, whether his word is good, or his motives are pure. The law of contract, enforced by the state, secures the terms of exchange. Matters of the heart, friendship, love, sentiment, needn't intrude. But in pre-commercial societies, that is, before contracts, there was no strict separation of contract and gift. Klieger explains trades were inexact, open-ended, and had everything to do with personal and communal relationships. They strengthened friendships, guaranteed allies, and maintained tradition. The movement of material goods served a variety of immaterial purposes that the language of cold-hearted utility failed to fully capture. Love and self-interest were not so readily distinguished. Love and self-interest cannot be so readily distinguished. But, Klieger says, the contract has given a bad name to exchange. In another context, we would see that social life is nothing other than an extended transaction. This is not a bad thing. It's what makes the weight of life's uncertainties bearable. We need things from others, both spiritual and material, just as they need from us. So by chipping away at the division between gifts and contracts, Mauss's point was not to make us cynical about gifts. Instead, it was to suggest that our economic exchanges might retain something, the spirit of gift-giving. So what would it mean to retain the spirit of gift-giving in the transactions that we are stuck with in the modern commercial society? Well, we would reject the contract-gift dichotomy to recover care in our exchanges. We would accept the obligation of the cycle of gifts and counter-gifts that never ends. We would take joy in this connectedness, not take refuge in the law of contracts that absolves us of care once the strict contract terms are met. This would apply at many scales. At the national scale, we would care for our workers and elders with generous social insurance to reciprocate their gifts of labor, wisdom, and care. We would vote for a robust welfare state to care for all those who need care, recognizing that we might have been or might find ourselves among their numbers. At the state and local level, we would tax ourselves enough to provide for schools and housing for our children and for others. We would ensure adequate compensation for the labors of parenting, teaching, caring for elders, creating art, even ministering to congregations. We would pay the guy we hire from Home Depot more than minimum wage. And we would tip everyone who needs to be tipped. We would recognize that there are no exact calculations for the reciprocal duty of care. Instead, the terms would reflect the open-ended, approximate exchanges that meet needs, not that merely mete out desserts. The kind of giving that builds and sustains communities. And we would apply this in our personal relations. We would thank grandmother for the sweater. We would accept the dinner invitation. Diane told us that the Buddha says true charity occurs only when there are no notions of giving, giver, or gift. And she also told us that there is real value in giving even when we fall short of that aspiration. But that aspiration itself may be a gift, one that we can give to others and ourselves. In Buddhism, compassion is not just a nice feeling. Loving kindness is a deliberate practice, a tool it's used to break down the illusion of a separate self, a tool to experience the truth that all life is connected and interdependent. Through compassion and caring for others, through giving, we can let go of craving and our obsession with ourself. This letting go can lead us to freedom from suffering, and that's a kind of gift to ourselves. So does the reciprocal gift of freedom somehow taint our compassion? I don't think so. The freedom that may flow from the practice of compassion is not running away from the world. It's living in the world with an open and loving heart. And that can only lead to more compassion. And even where we fall short of what the Buddha called pure giving, there is value in our more imperfect giving. Value to the recipient, value to the web of reciprocity by which we mutually sustain ourselves and build community. And there is value in our very aspiration to true giving, to our approach to freedom, freedom from attachment and from obsession with ourself. As Klieger says, for the kind of giving that is not reduced to contract, the kind that really matters, love and self-interest are not so readily distinguished. So let us accept the web of reciprocity, even as we aspire to love.
I believe in the power of giving. I believe in the power of change. I believe in the power of differences. I believe in love. Love is at the center. At the center there is love. Love is at the center. At the center there is love. I believe in the power of justice. I believe in the power of fairness. I believe in the web of life. I believe in love. Love is at the center of this rug. Love is at the center there is love.